The teachings of Judaism severely skewed the teachings of the Old Testament. And this caused the Jews to reject Jesus. Let's take a closer look at these issues. Let's take a closer look at the first one. Jesus was not qualified to be Messiah. You see, according to Judaism, and really according to the Old Testament, this would be a true statement that the Messiah would be a descendant of King David. They knew that, and the Old Testament teaches that the Messiah would be a descendant of King David. But see, the Jews contend that since Christians claim that Jesus was born of a virgin, then he had no father. And they say on that basis alone, Jesus can't be the Messiah because his lineage, his father, should be traced back to King David. And since he has no father, according to Christian claim, then he cannot be the Messiah because David is not in his lineage. Now you got to realize the underpinning issue here for the Jews was the fact that the Jews were not, and still to this day are not, looking for a supernatural Savior. They're not looking for a supernatural. This is one of the greatest misconceptions Christians have of Judaism. We sometimes think and assume that the Jews simply rejected Jesus because they didn't think he was the Messiah, but they're still waiting on someone in the future who will be like Jesus, just someone different. No. They're not looking for anybody similar to who Jesus is. They're not looking for anybody, by the way, supernatural. They do not believe that the Messiah is going to be some type of man and God. As Christians believe Jesus was 100% God and 100% man, the Jews aren't even looking for anybody like that. Instead, they are looking for a normal man who was born of normal parents who would become a political savior. A political savior to the nation of Israel and would promote Judaism worldwide. So this person that's supposed to come, now he's going to be born of royal lineage, which is going to give him already political influence. And then he would rise up and lead that nation to national prominence and world prominence. And at the same time, therefore, promote Judaism worldwide. That's how they define the term Messiah. So, primarily, this is what the Jews are looking for, which is so difficult whenever you go to the book of Matthew and you begin to read how Matthew was trying to prove that Jesus is the Messiah. This stuff just went right over their heads so many times. Jesus would get so frustrated with the Pharisees because they weren't even looking for somebody like him. Pastor Stacy read this morning from Matthew 16:16 when Simon Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Matthew recorded that in his gospel because that is the heart of his gospel, that Jesus is the Christ. That is a reference to the fact he is the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Peter, a Jew, made that claim. Peter, a Jew, said that about Jesus. But it was that same Peter, a few chapters later in the book of Matthew, in Matthew 25 and 51, that same Peter that in the Garden of Gethsemane on the night before, the night that Jesus was arrested, right? It was that same Peter that pulled out a sword and took a swipe at a man's head and caught him in the ear and cut his ear off. Why? Because that Jewish man named Peter, though he believed Jesus was the Messiah, he also believed that the Messiah's work was to bring about political rebellion. And Peter was ready to start that battle that night. And it was Jesus who picked up the man's ear and attached it back to his head and said, "No, That's not what my kingdom is about, and that's not the kind of Savior that I am. Jesus' kingdom would grow through spiritual renewal, not political rebellion. So this first claim that Jews have, that Jesus is not qualified to be Messiah, is a big issue. Number two, they say he did not fulfill the Messianic prophecies. Now, based on many Old Testament prophecies of the Messiah, the Jews were looking for, now pay attention, they were looking for a man who would usher in an age of world peace. An age of world peace that would be characterized by basically three things: by the building of the temple, by the restoring of Israel to national prominence, and the universal worship of God. All right, so they're looking for a man who is going to come and usher in world peace as a political and spiritual leader who would rebuild the temple, what they claimed to be the third temple, also restore Israel to national prominence, and bring about, therefore, universal worship of God. Jews contend that Jesus fulfilled none of these. None of these. Did Jesus build a temple? Did Jesus restore Israel to national prominence? The way they would refer to that is, as a Jew, they would say that the Messiah is going to bring Jews all back to the nation of Israel and really purify Israel. Did Jesus do that? And did he bring about universal worship of God? The Jews say he did not. Now, you know what's unfortunate? Please hear me this morning. You know what's very unfortunate is that Christian theologians play right into the hands of Judaism and Judaism skepticism. Many Christian theologians play right into the hands. Let me give you a couple of examples. Dispensationalism, for example. Dispensationalism teaches that when Jesus came, he failed. He failed in his first coming to set up his kingdom and establish his kingdom. And that is really at the heart of dispensationalism. And you see, that feeds right into the Jewish skepticism. Because they say, you see, he couldn't be Messiah. He didn't fulfill the prophecies. When he came, he didn't establish his kingdom. Now, on the other hand, there's Christian theologians we call full preterists, and they too play into the hands because they say, well, sure he did. In 70 A.D., he fully fulfilled all of the prophecies, and they were completed in 70 A.D., and it was all consummated. But yet, friend, reality says the very opposite, that it's not all finished. That the kingdom is not fully established, and there's not universal worship of God. And so what we've got to be careful as Christian theologians is not to feed into the skepticism or to give the enemies of Christ more fodder. And that's why here at Murrieta Valley Church, we take doctrinal teaching very seriously. Lives are at stake, you see.